Ruslan Lukanen didn't go to the lake that day looking for danger. He and his friend had driven out to Lake Vigo Zero, a vast stretch of cold Russian wilderness scattered with hundreds of wooded islands. It was autumn. The wind was sharp, but the water shimmered peacefully under a pale sky. The plan was simple: fish, talk, enjoy the quiet. Nature had other plans. As they drifted across the lake, lines cast into the water, Ruslan suddenly noticed movement in the distance. At first, he thought it was driftwood. Then it moved again. 3 dark shapes were cutting through the surface of the water. As the boat edged closer, the shapes became clear: a mother bear, swimming powerfully toward one of the islands, and behind her, 2 small cubs. Bears in the Russian wilderness weren't unusual. Swimming bears weren't unusual either. But something was wrong. The wind had grown stronger, pushing waves across the lake. The current pulled unpredictably. While the mother swam with determined strokes, the cubs were struggling. Their tiny heads dipped beneath the surface again and again. Every time they resurfaced, they seemed farther from her. Ruslan watched as the distance widened. The mother did not turn back. It wasn't cruelty, it was survival. A full-grown bear fighting against the current might barely manage. A cub had no such strength. For a moment, Ruslan said nothing. He and his friend exchanged a glance. Neither of them had planned to interfere with wildlife. In places like this, you respected nature. You didn't challenge it. But watching the cubs grow weaker was something else entirely. They were drifting. They were sinking. Ruslan felt the decision form before he fully understood it. He eased the motor forward, steering carefully toward the cubs but not too quickly. If the mother noticed and turned back, things could turn deadly. Seconds felt longer than minutes. The cubs' movements became frantic. One of them let out a desperate sound that barely carried over the wind. When the boat came within reach, something unexpected happened. Instead of panicking, the nearest cub began swimming toward them. Not away, toward. Its small paws slapped against the side of the boat, slipping again and again. Exhaustion had drained whatever strength it had left. The cub tried to grip the edge with its claws, then with its teeth. It wasn't aggression. It was desperation. Ruslan's heart pounded. He had no idea how to lift a bear cub from icy water or whether he should. But time was running out, and the current wasn't slowing down. Ruslan didn't have time to overthink it. The cub's tiny body was sliding down the side of the boat, claws scraping uselessly against wet metal. One more slip and it would disappear beneath the waves. "Use the net," his friend said. It sounded almost absurd. The fishing net was meant for trout, not a soaking, panicked bear cub. But it was all they had. Slowly, carefully, his friend slid the net beneath the cub's body. The cub turned its head toward them. For a brief second, its eyes locked with Ruslan's. There was no growl, no snap, just exhaustion. "We'll help you," Ruslan murmured, his voice low, steady. The cub struggled weakly as they lifted. The net bent under the unexpected weight, water pouring back into the lake. Inch by inch, they raised the small bear higher. Then almost miraculously, the cub rolled over the edge and collapsed onto the deck. For a moment, no one moved. The cub lay there, breathing hard, too tired to react. But there was no time to celebrate. The second cub was still fighting the current. Now that they knew it was possible, they moved faster. The boat edged closer, and again the small bear swam toward them, as if it understood that this strange floating object was its only chance. The net slid beneath it. The lift, the strain, the final heave. 2 cubs now lay on the boat's floor, drenched and trembling but alive. Ruslan exhaled slowly, his hands shaking. The danger wasn't over. The mother bear had reached the island. If she returned and saw strangers with her cubs, the situation could turn deadly in seconds. There was only one thing left to do. They steered toward the island. As the boat scraped gently against the shore, Ruslan scanned the tree line. The forest stood still, silent. No sign of the mother. The cubs didn't try to stand. They were too weak. Carefully, more carefully than he ever imagined he would handle wild animals, Ruslan and his friend lifted the cubs once more and carried them to the edge of the trees. They set them down on soft earth and stepped back immediately. No lingering, no waiting. They pushed the boat back into the water and moved away. From a safe distance, Ruslan looked back at the island. The cubs were barely visible now, small shapes near the forest's edge. Somewhere inside those trees, a mother bear was waiting. Days later, the footage of the rescue spread across the internet. People around the world watched the moment the cub gripped the boat with its teeth, the quiet words spoken over the wind, the impossible lift from water to safety. When asked why he risked it, Ruslan's answer was simple. "It was dangerous," he said. "But they're living creatures. We couldn't just watch." Sometimes courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it floats quietly on a lake and decides not to look away.